Welcome to Ping 24 Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Just in. The South China Sea is on edge. On December 27, 2025, the West Philippine Sea erupted in chaos. A routine fishing trip near Sabina Shoal, well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, turned violent. Chinese Coast Guard vessels reportedly rammed and water-cannoned Filipino fishing boats. The incident shattered the post-Christmas calm and reignited the maritime dispute. This isn't just a territorial spat. It's about livelihoods destroyed and international law defied. The world is watching. The first reports came from the fishermen themselves, their desperate radio calls picked up by the Philippine Coast Guard. They described massive, white ships bearing down on their small wooden bancas, water cannons ripping through equipment, and the sickening crunch of hulls colliding. For these men, the sea is their lifeblood. On that morning, it became a battleground. This is more than a headline, it's a human tragedy. Filipino fishermen have faced harassment for years, but this attack crossed a new line. The use of force against civilians marks a dangerous escalation. The timing, just after Christmas, deeply offended the nation, turning a season of peace into one of anger. Manila is left asking, what happens next? Diplomats scramble, military analysts review satellite images, and newsrooms race to piece together the story. At the heart of this crisis are ordinary people, the fishermen of the FB St. Nicholas. They weren't looking for a fight, just fish to feed their families. Now their boat is damaged, their catch lost, and their lives changed forever. Their ordeal is the real story of the South China Sea dispute. It's a story the world cannot ignore. In the Philippines, Christmas is a season of joy, family, and faith. Streets glow with lanterns, families reunite, and the air is filled with carols and festive food. But just 2 days after Christmas, news from Sabina Shoal shattered the peace. While families celebrated, their countrymen fought for their lives at sea. Joyful music was replaced by urgent news bulletins. Images of celebration gave way to photos of damaged boats and frightened fishermen. The spirit of Christmas was violated. Fishing is a way of life for millions. The attack struck at the heart of Filipino society. The timing made it feel personal, a national insult. Across the country, gatherings turned somber, conversations shifted to outrage and sorrow. The ordeal of the fishermen eclipsed holiday cheer. The sea, usually a source of pride, brought only grief this Christmas. The nation's joy was tainted by a sense of injustice. The wounds of Sabina Shoal run deep. December 27th began like any other for the crew of the FB St. Nicholas. The men, led by Captain Mateo Santos, were preparing their nets, hopeful for a good catch. They were 124 nautical miles from Palawan, in waters their families had fished for generations. Suddenly, 2 massive ships appeared on the horizon. Chinese Coast Guard vessels moved directly toward the Filipino boats. Captain Santos tried to steer away but was cut off. A blaring horn, warnings in a foreign language, then water cannons. High-pressure streams shattered windows and knocked crew off their feet. Panic erupted as the Chinese ships circled, creating waves that threatened to capsize the wooden boats. The fishermen screamed and waved, trying to show they were unarmed civilians. The assault was relentless. One ship rammed their side, the sound like thunder. The ordeal lasted nearly an hour, but felt endless. Nets were torn, equipment destroyed, the boat took on water. The water cannons targeted both boats and men, causing injuries. It was a calculated act of aggression, meant to intimidate and drive them away. When the Chinese vessels finally left, devastation remained. The FB St. Nicholas was crippled, its crew battered and traumatized. The promise of a good catch was gone, replaced by the reality of survival. The sea had become a battlefield. When the battered boats returned to Palawan, the true cost was clear. 3 fishermen were injured, one with a deep gash, another with broken ribs, and Captain Santos bruised and shaken. The economic loss was total destroyed nets, lost catch, and a damaged boat. With no income, families faced weeks or months of hardship. The emotional toll rippled through the community. Wives and children wept at the port. Fear spread among other fishermen. Many are now afraid to return to sea, their only livelihood. How can we fight them? One wife asked. We have only small boats. The incident exposed the vulnerability of those who depend on the sea. For them, geopolitics is not abstract. It's a daily threat. The men of the FB St. Nicholas are now symbols of a national struggle. but they are also individuals, facing fear, loss, and an uncertain future. The true cost of this dispute is measured in suffering, not statements. Their hope is fragile, but their story is a stark reminder of what's at stake. The Philippines erupted in outrage. Search China Layas trended as Filipinos from all walks of life expressed anger and solidarity. Protests erupted outside the Chinese consulate, flags waving, signs demanding justice. The government responded swiftly, summoning the Chinese ambassador and issuing a strong protest. President Marcos Jr. vowed to protect citizens and territory. The Coast Guard released video evidence to counter Beijing's denials. The incident united a fractured nation. Opposition leaders stood with the government. Lawmakers called for more funding for the Navy and Coast Guard. The public mood was defiant. The Philippines would not be bullied. Justice for the fishermen became a national rallying cry. The pressure on leaders to act is immense. Suggestions range from civilian supply missions to strengthening alliances. Manila's roar for justice is echoing around the world. China's response was predictable, unyielding and defiant. Beijing claimed the Filipino boats were intruding, and that its Coast Guard acted professionally. They dismissed Philippine evidence as fabricated, insisting on their indisputable sovereignty under the 9-dash line. China refuses to recognize the 2016 tribunal ruling that invalidated its claims. Domestically, the government fuels nationalism, portraying its Coast Guard as heroic defenders. State media depicts Filipino fishermen as pawns in a larger geopolitical game. Internationally, China accuses the Philippines of escalation and warns others not to interfere. By rejecting third-party arbitration, China seeks to set its own rules in the South China Sea. It uses its power to pressure smaller claimants. The message is clear: the South China Sea is China's domain. They will enforce their claims regardless of global opinion. The standoff continues. At the heart of this conflict is a clash between international law and national ambition. The 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, defines maritime rights. Both the Philippines and China are signatories. Sabina Shoal lies well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. In 2016, the Hague Tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in favor of the Philippines, rejecting China's 9-dash line. China ignored the ruling, continuing its aggressive actions. The world has largely supported the Philippines, calling on China to respect international law. But the tribunal's ruling has no enforcement mechanism. Its power is moral and legal, not practical. If powerful nations ignore international law, the rules-based order is at risk. The Sabina Shoal incident is an attack on both Filipino fishermen and the principles of UNCLOS. The world is watching to see if law or might will prevail. The stakes go beyond one shoal. They threaten the global order. The outcome will set a precedent for the future. Why does a clash over a shoal matter globally? The South China Sea is a vital artery for world trade. Over a third of global shipping, worth trillions, passes through these waters. Instability here could disrupt supply chains and spike prices worldwide. The dispute is a flashpoint in US-China rivalry. The US and allies conduct patrols to uphold freedom of navigation. China sees these as provocations. The Philippines is a US treaty ally. An escalation could draw in major powers. Other Southeast Asian nations watch closely, wary of China's dominance. If China prevails, the regional balance of power could shift. ASEAN unity is at stake. The Sabina Shoal incident is a microcosm of a larger struggle: law versus power. What happens here will echo worldwide. The world cannot afford to look away. The Sabina Shoal incident is a classic case of Grayzone tactics, aggressive, but just short of war. China uses its Coast Guard and maritime militia to harass and intimidate, avoiding open conflict. This strategy changes the status quo incrementally, making it hard for others to respond militarily. The risk of escalation is real. One miscalculation could spiral out of control. The Philippines is pushing back, publicizing Chinese aggression and increasing patrols. Each encounter is a dangerous test of wills. For fishing communities, every trip is now fraught with risk. The nation faces a constant drain on resources and anxiety. The government must defend sovereignty without provoking disaster. The world must do more than issue statements. Active support for peaceful resolution is needed. Diplomacy must be relentless. The hope for peace is distant, but essential. The fate of the fishermen is a warning to us all.